I was literally standing in the middle of London Heathrow Terminal 2 last week, holding a lukewarm oat milk latte, staring up at a massive flight information board, like it was the stock market ticker in 1999. My neck was stiff, my shoulders were tense, and around me, hundreds of other travellers were doing the exact same thing. We were all silent, entirely motionless, just waiting. If you walked into a major US airport like JFK or LAX, you would never see this specific collective state of high-stakes suspense. In America, you get your boarding pass, you look at the paper or your phone, and it tells you exactly where to go. You walk to gate B24, you sit down by the window, you plug in your phone, and you zone out for 2 hours. But in the United Kingdom, they play a completely different, psychologically exhausting game. They call it the centralized lounge system, and for an unsuspecting American traveller, it is a trial by fire that you are simply not prepared to face. When I first moved to the UK a couple of years ago, I did not understand this layout at all. I cleared security, looked at my boarding pass, and realised there was no gate number. I panicked, thinking there was a mistake with my ticket. So I rushed over to an airport employee. I was literally out of breath, asking them where my plane was, and they just looked at me with this incredibly calm, slightly amused British expression and said, "Dear, you just need to wait for the screens to update." That was my introduction to the British airport holding pen. Instead of sending you to your gate, British airports keep thousands of passengers crammed into a giant centralized departure lounge. It is basically a high-end shopping mall with runways attached. You are surrounded by luxury boutiques, pubs, and coffee shops, and you are forced to wait there until exactly 45 or 50 minutes before your flight departs. The airport authorities do not keep you there because they want you to relax. They do it because of raw, calculated retail economics. If they tell you your gate is a 15-minute walk away, you will go stand by that gate, where there is nothing to buy except a stale bag of chips from a vending machine. But if they keep you trapped in the central terminal, you will buy a £30 bottle of gin, a massive bar of chocolate, and a full English breakfast. The emotional toll of this setup is wild. You are constantly monitoring those giant digital screens, watching the status of your flight go from boarding gate will be announced at 12:30 to gate announcement at 12:40. The tension in the room builds with every passing minute. Everyone is standing on their tiptoes, clutching their carry-on bags like runners at the starting line of a marathon. And then the screen finally flashes. Flight BA 142, gate B49. This is when the Great British Gate Run begins. In airports like Heathrow or Stansted, the gates are not just a short walk down the hall, they are often located in satellite terminals that require you to descend 3 flights of escalators, walk through a freezing, brightly lit underground concrete tunnel for half a mile, or board an automated transit train. You have exactly 30 minutes to cover this distance before the gate agents close the flight, and let me tell you, British Airlines do not play around with their schedules. If the airline says the gate closes 20 minutes before departure, they will shut that door right in your face, even if you are standing 10 feet away sweating through your t-shirt. The transition from peaceful shopping mall to absolute physical sprint is a shock to the system that always catches tourists completely off guard. You see people dropping their duty-free bags, children crying, and elderly couples power walking like their lives depend on it. In the US, we are used to a slow, predictable stroll to our gate. In the UK, catching a flight is a tactical military maneuver. Quick thing before we get to the absolute craziest airport rule on this list. The data on this channel shows that over 80% of you watching right now are not subscribed. That means you are showing up for the content, but the algorithm has no reason to show you the next video. Hit subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Now, if you manage to survive the gate announcement anxiety, you still have to deal with the absolute gauntlet that is British airport security. This is where most Americans completely lose their minds, and honestly, I do not blame them. In the US, clearing security can be loud and chaotic. You have Transportation Security Administration officers yelling at you to take your shoes off, empty your pockets, and move quickly. It feels like a high-intensity drill, but once you get through the screaming, the actual rules are relatively straightforward. They do not really care about the exact composition of your toiletries as long as they fit in a bag. In the UK, the experience is the exact opposite. The security officers do not scream at you. In fact, they are incredibly polite, almost quiet, but they are absolutely ruthless when it comes to the rules. If you make a single mistake, your bag will be pulled aside for a manual search, and you will enter what I call the high security waiting zone of despair. Let us talk about the liquids rule, because this is the ultimate test. In America, we are used to the standard quart-sized Ziploc bag. It is a decent sized bag, and usually, as long as your liquid containers are under 3.4 ounces, you can squeeze them in, zip it up halfway, and the security agents will not say a word. In a British airport, they do not care about your quart-sized bags, and they definitely do not care about those expensive, clear, zippered toiletry cases you bought on Amazon that say TSA approved on the side. When you walk up to a British security line, you are greeted by a stand filled with government regulation clear plastic bags. They are exactly 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters. That is about 8 inches by 8 inches, and they are incredibly thin. You are allowed exactly one of these bags per passenger. Every single liquid, cream, gel, paste, and aerosol you own must fit comfortably inside this tiny bag, and the plastic must seal completely flat at the top. You cannot tie it, you cannot tape it, and you cannot have the plastic bulging even a millimeter. If you have a lip balm, a tube of mascara, a stick of solid deodorant, or a tiny tub of hair wax, the security officers will class it as a liquid. If it is not inside that single sealed 20 by 20 plastic bag, your entire suitcase gets flagged. They will pull your bag out of the main line, place it on a separate conveyor belt, and you will be forced to wait in a queue for a manual inspection. This is not a quick process. I have stood in Manchester and London Stansted watching people wait 45 minutes just for a security officer to open their bag, pull out a single forgotten tube of hand cream, and throw it in the trash. The efficiency of the British security machine is terrifying. The officers do not negotiate, they do not accept excuses, and they will not let you off with a warning. If it does not fit in the bag, it goes in the bin. To make matters worse, the UK is currently in the middle of a massive, incredibly confusing transition period with its airport scanners. Over the last couple of years, the government has been pushing airports to install high-tech 3D CT scanners. These machines are amazing because they scan your luggage so thoroughly that you do not have to take your laptops or your liquids out of your bags. At airports where these are fully operational, like London Gatwick or London Heathrow Terminal 2, the rules have officially changed. You can carry up to 2 litres of liquids in your hand luggage, and you do not have to worry about the tiny plastic bags anymore. But here is the catch. The rollout has been completely mismatched. While Heathrow and Gatwick have scrapped the old rules, other major airports like London Stansted, Luton and Manchester are still waiting for full approval or are still installing the machines. This has created an absolute minefield for travellers. You could fly out of Heathrow Terminal 2 on a domestic flight and have a seamless, futuristic experience where you leave everything in your bag. Then 3 days later, you try to fly out of Stansted or Manchester, and you assume the rules are the same. You leave your 2-litre bottle of specialty English gin in your backpack, only to walk straight into a security checkpoint operating under the strict old rules. Your bag gets rejected instantly. The staff will explain very politely that the 2-litre rule does not apply at this airport, and because your bottle of gin is over 100 millilitres, they have to confiscate it. I have seen grown adults literally begging security guards in the Stansted departure hall, trying to explain that they just did this at Heathrow last week, and the guards just shake their heads and point to the trash can. The data shows that at airports like Birmingham and Stansted, up to 15% of hand luggage bags get rejected at security because of these liquid compliance issues. When you consider that a single rejected bag adds 10 minutes of manual search time, you can see why the queues in the summer can stretch all the way out of the terminal doors. It is a systemic bottleneck caused entirely by traveller confusion and incredibly strict enforcement. Also, this is exactly the kind of thing I go much deeper on with the people who support this channel directly. So if you're sitting there thinking, okay, I need the fuller version of this story, join the membership below. That's where I share the deeper thoughts, the more personal side of all this, and the extra bits I can't always fit into the main videos. Once you finally clear security, clutching your tiny plastic bag of toiletries, you think you are home free. You think you can finally walk to a coffee shop, sit down and recover from the stress. But British airport architects have designed one final commercial trap that you literally cannot escape. It is the mandatory duty-free maze. In almost every major US airport, once you pass the security scanners, you walk out into a wide open corridor. You can look left, look right, find your gate, or walk directly to a restaurant. The layout is designed for navigation, but in British airports, particularly the ones dominated by low-cost airlines like Ryanair and EasyJet, the exit from security leads directly into a duty-free store. I do not mean that the store is off to the side, I mean the walking path literally winds through the middle of the shop. The floor is designed like an IKEA showroom with a curved serpentine path that forces you to walk past rows of expensive designer perfumes, sparkling bottles of single malt scotch, giant displays of shortbread biscuits, and massive bars of Toblerone. The sensory overload is intense. You have sales representatives trying to spray you with cologne, bright fluorescent lights reflecting off glass cases, and signs flashing deals on luxury goods. You cannot bypass it. There is no secret hallway or shortcut. If you want to get to the departure lounge, you have to play the role of a consumer walking through a physical catalogue. For Americans who are used to utilitarian, spacious airport designs, this forced commercialism can feel incredibly claustrophobic and disorienting, especially when you are already stressed about your flight. And the challenges do not stop when you land back in the UK after an international trip. Arrivals in Great Britain present a completely different kind of test. The country has heavily invested in automated technology at border control, specifically the e-gates. If you have a biometric passport from the US, Canada, Europe, or several other countries, you do not have to wait in the long line to speak to a border force officer. You simply walk up to a row of automated gates, scan your passport, look into a camera, and the gate swings open. When this system works, it is brilliant. It is fast, efficient, and requires zero human interaction. But when it fails on a spectacular, nationwide scale. Over the last couple of years, the UK border e-gate system has suffered several massive systemic software crashes. Because these gates are linked to a centralized database, a single glitch can shut down every automated border gate in the country simultaneously. When that happens, airports like Heathrow and Gatwick turn into absolute scenes of logistical chaos. Thousands of passengers arriving from long-haul flights are suddenly funneled into manual immigration lines. The queue stretches back through the arrivals hall, down the long corridors, and sometimes passengers are held on the airplanes because there is physically no space left in the terminal for people to stand. Because the airports rely so heavily on the e-gates, they do not have enough physical border officers on duty to handle the volume manually. You can end up standing in a hot, airless immigration hall for 3 or 4 hours after an 8-hour flight, with absolutely no backup plan from the airport authorities. It is a stark reminder of how vulnerable these high-tech systems are when they are pushed to their absolute limits. This brings us to the fascinating cultural and psychological differences between how airport staff operate in the US versus the UK. In America, we have a deeply ingrained culture of customer service. It is the legacy of the customer is always right philosophy. Even at a busy airport terminal, a check-in agent or a cashier at a cafe will usually make small talk. They will smile, ask where you are heading, and wish you a wonderful vacation. There is a friendly, informal warmth that, even if it is a bit performative, can really help calm a nervous traveller down. In British airports, the customer service style is completely different. It is not rude, but it is incredibly no-nonsense and transactional. The staff are polite, but it is a quiet, reserved kind of courtesy. They will not ask about your travel plans, they will not make jokes, and they will definitely not call you by your first name. They view their job as an exercise in maximum efficiency. If you try to engage in casual banter with a security officer or a gate agent, you will often be met with a polite but incredibly deadpan, silent stare that will make you feel like you have just committed a social crime. This cultural gap can make American travelers feel like the staff are being cold or unhelpful, but that is a total misunderstanding. In the UK, efficiency and keeping the line moving is considered the highest form of respect. They do not want to waste your time with small talk, and they expect you to be just as organized and focused as they are. But it is not all stress and logistical hurdles. There are a few areas where British airports actually get things incredibly right, and one of them is the luggage cart situation. If you arrive at JFK Airport in New York with 3 massive suitcases, you have to walk over to a luggage cart bay, swipe your credit card, and pay $5 or $6 just to rent a crooked, squeaking metal cart for 10 minutes. It is an absolute scam, and it is incredibly frustrating when you have just spent hundreds of dollars on a flight. In the UK, luggage carts are almost always completely free, or they operate on a coin return system where you put a pound coin in to release the cart and get it back when you return it. It is a small detail, but it makes a massive difference when you are traveling with heavy bags. The terminal facilities themselves, when you are not sprinting through them, are often incredibly clean, modern, and filled with fantastic food options that put American airport dining to shame. Instead of greasy fast food chains, British terminals are packed with high-quality options like pret-a-manger, where you can get fresh salads, hot soup, and artisanal coffee, or classic British pubs where you can sit down for a quiet pint of local ale before your flight. Ultimately, navigating a British airport is a test of discipline. It forces you to shed those relaxed, unstructured, slightly chaotic travel habits we develop in the US and adopt a highly organized, silent, and strategic mindset. You have to learn how to pack your toiletries with the precision of a Tetris grandmaster. You have to maintain absolute focus in the face of last-minute gate announcements. And you have to accept that you are going to walk through a duty-free maze whether you like it or not. It is an exhausting, humbling, but ultimately rewarding experience that teaches you a lot about the differences between our two cultures. So if you are really loving these expat stories and you want to show some love, please hype up this video by leaving a comment and hitting that like button. Let me know in the comments below if you have ever survived the Great Heathrow Gate Run, or if you have ever had your expensive toiletries confiscated by the legendary British Liquid Police. I want to hear all of your airport horror stories, so let us get a conversation going down there. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.